Okay, so if we didn't remember from last week, it's just a refresher. We take Cornell style notes. You do not have to write this down. There are a few slides within these notes that you do not have to write down. They're just for information purposes. This is one of them. Cornell style notes. We put the title at the top. The title can either just be 1.3 notes, that's fine, or if you want to put the whole entire title, the 1.3 scientific thinking and processes at the top of your page, you can do that too. We are going to do an essential question, so leave room for the essential question. We will fill that in at the end, just like we did last week. And then the page should be split. Maybe a third of it on the left is for the title of each slide, and the titles appear in blue. Hi, Nadia. And then on the right, the 2/3, the fat column, that is the main notes. That's going to be all of the bullet points that we go through in the notes. And then at the end, you can either do it on the bottom like it is there, or if you want to do it on the back of your page, that's fine, but we are going to generate and write a summary. Okay, so that is the Cornell note style that we should all be taking notes in. So to get started, if you are new, your notes should already be taken. I give you these notes. They're called closed notes with blanks. All we should be doing here is just filling in our blanks. I actually have a couple polls in the middle that we're going to participate in for this set of notes. And then at the end, you guys are going to generate an essential question and a summary. I will tell you how to do that, review that in the end. Any questions before we get started? Okay. So our key concept, science is a way of thinking, questioning, and gathering evidence. We are talking about the scientific method this section. This is something that you should have been learning pretty much your whole entire life in school. Anytime you start a science class, you typically start off with the scientific method. And we have a method so that scientists all over the world can follow the exact same method and compare their results. If you're not doing things the same way, it's not easy to compare results. So step one, again, scientific method is a process of inquiry. Just inquiry just means questioning, a process of questioning things. Step one is observations. Scientists make careful observations. Observation is when you're collecting data with your senses. Most of the time, you're using your sight. Sometimes maybe you're doing a taste test. You're using a taste test. You're doing a hearing test. Smelling, touching. You can use any of your senses to gather and collect these observations, but typically sight is the one scientists use. There are two different types of observations that scientists make. First one are quantitative observations, are those you can measure with numbers. That is why the N in the word quantitative is bold and highlighted and capital, because if you remember the N, you think numbers. So quantitative observations are those you can measure with numbers. So like weight, length, height, things like that. Qualitative observations are those you have to describe. So I highlighted the L, I bolded and underlined the L because you are describing the quality of something. Some things are not easy to describe the quality of. Color or the taste of something. That the picture at the bottom red, those are all shades of red. What color is more red? That's not something you can quantify. It's not red number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's just light red and dark red. So that is a qualitative observation because we are describing the quality of red in that square. When scientists record observations, they just write it down, whether it's numbers or the description of something. They call that data. And scientists collect data with their initial observations, and we will collect more data later. Step 2 is a hypothesis. So scientists collect all of these observations in the first step, and they start wondering things about their observations. They start asking themselves questions about the things that they're observing. They ask questions. After they ask these questions, they form a hypothesis. A hypothesis is a potential answer to one of their questions. And a key to a good hypothesis is it must be testable, because the next step in the scientific method is to test it. And so they will ask a question, they will say, I think this is a logical answer to that question. Let's test it out. Step 3 is to experiment. Those tests in a scientific setting are called an experiment. There are 3 main parts that every experiment has to have to be considered an actual scientific experiment, and they are called variables. Sometimes we call them factors, but they're officially called variables. We will say that word a lot this section. The first variable is called the dependent variable, and it's usually the easiest to pick out of an experiment. So to pick out the variables from an experiment, you have to ask certain questions. The first one, the most easily recognizable, is what is being measured. So we're going to do this in a minute. The next slide is an example. I'm going to give you the description of a random experiment. And the first thing you do is we're going to read it and we're going to pick out what is the factor that is being measured. And that part that is being measured is called the dependent variable. We call it the DV for short. And there can be more than one. You can measure more than one thing during an experiment. All right, the next slide is an example. You do not have to write the example down. You can if you want, but we're going to use this same example to pick out the 3 different variables. So our dependent variable example, 2 plants are grown using 2 different types of soil or dirt. A scientist grows both plants for 6 weeks, gives them the same amount of water and sunlight. And they measure the height of the plant every week. So I'm going to ask you, what is being measured? We're going to launch this poll. So you should have 3 factors on your screen. From this example experiment, what is being measured? Is it the types of soil? Is it the water and the sunlight? Or is it the height of the plant? What do you guys think? Can you see the poll? Yes. Okay, somebody voted. Let me give you guys about 10 seconds to answer. Thank you for answering, the 3 of you that have. You can reread the experiment given and tell me what is being measured. And it tells you right there. I'll give you a hint. It's the last sentence. Good. So you guys are getting it. All right. If you didn't get to do the poll, no big deal. You'll get to do the next one. Ready for it? Yes, Fatima, thank you. The height of the plant. Very good. So the height of the plant, that is what's being measured. So we call that the dependent variable of this experiment. All right. Next variable is called the independent variable. We call it the IV for short. In science, there are always groups of things being compared or put into categories. The scientist changes something on purpose to compare one thing to another. The part that the scientist is changing on purpose is called the independent variable. So now, same experiment. Two plants are grown using two different types of soil. A scientist grows both plants for 6 weeks, gives them the same amount of water and sunlight. They measure the height of the plant every week. What part is being compared or put into categories? So you should have another poll pop up asking that question that is highlighted on the screen. Is it the types of soil? Is it the water and sunlight? Or is it the height of the plant? We are putting these plants into categories. What are we comparing one to the other? What are we changing on purpose about these two plants? Very good. Nope, we already used the height of the plant. The height of the plant is what was being measured. That was the dependent variable. Two of you got it. All right. It is the two different types of soil is the independent variable. Soil A and soil B, whatever they may be, they're the two different categories we are growing these plants in. And then the last is the controlled variable. So to remain a fair test of something, only one factor should be manipulated or changed, which is the independent variable, the one we just talked about. The rest of the factors should stay the same or should stay constant. The parts of the experiment that will always remain constant are called the controlled variables, or we just call them constants. So for our example, same example, two plants are grown using two different types of soil. A scientist grows both plants for 6 weeks, gives them the same amount of water and sunlight. They measure the height of the plant every week. What stays the same for both plants? That is the last one. So we already used the other two, so now it's a process of elimination, but it does tell you right in the description of that experiment what stays the same between both of the plants. Yeah. Anyone else want to vote? You guys all got it. Water and sunlight are the controlled variables. The time, the 6 weeks, could also be a controlled variable, but we didn't put that in there, so that's okay. All right. So step 4 of the scientific method are the results, data from the experiment. Like I said, and I told you, we collect data from our observations. We also collect data from our experiment. So data from the experiment get presented as graphs, tables, or figures. It is accompanied by a simple explanation of what the results are. There are no opinions or interpretations, only data. So this happens to be a pie chart. We can use a line graph. We're going to use a lot of line graphs this semester. We can use a bar graph. We can use all kinds of graphs. But graphs belong in the results section of the scientific method. And all it would say is, this is a pie chart about student grades. 4 people in this class, or 14.3% of the class, got an A. 10 of people, or 35.7% of people, got a C, and so on and so forth. That's it. There's no why, it's just the what's. What is happening in this graph? Step 5 is called the conclusion, or sometimes the discussion portion. This is where interpretations are made and conclusions are drawn about the results. So we take the information that we know, that we observed in the beginning, and then we take all the data from our experiment and we put that together and we form some kind of why. Why do the grades look like this for this particular class? We obviously don't know. This is just an example. Why didn't anybody get an F? So we add a few sentences about why you think the results turned out the way that they did. Why did only 4 people get an A? Is it that hard, but it's not hard enough for people to fail? We don't know. But in this section would be the description for why. A theory. This is one of the most controversial terms we've looked at so far. And the only reason why is because people don't realize the scientific meaning of the word is different than its everyday use. People who say, I've got a theory, they are not using this word in the correct form. A theory is accepted as scientific fact because it has multiple lines of evidence to actually support it. When people say, I have a theory, in everyday settings, they just have a guess. What they really have is a hypothesis. And not even that if it's not testable. So a theory, this is the official sciencey definition of a theory. It is an explanation of a set of related observations or events based upon proven hypotheses. So we've already ran these experiments, and now we have proof that our hypotheses are supported. So based upon proven hypotheses and verified multiple times by separate groups of researchers. That is another important thing about a theory. One scientist cannot make a theory. Hundreds or thousands of scientists have to do the exact same experiment and come up with the exact same information and the exact same answers for the scientific community to accept something as a theory. All right, so now that those blanks are filled in, or they should be filled in, we move on to our summary and essential question. And so I told you, or if you're new, you don't remember, I'm going to teach you how to use AI, like ChatGPT, correctly or in a constructive way. And this is one constructive way we can use it. So here is your prompt. You go to ChatGPT and you type in this prompt. Write one essential question and a 3 to 4 sentence summary of the following information. Make it at a certain reading level. Choose what you think your reading level is. If you are in 10th grade, choose 10th grade reading level. If you don't think you read at a 10th grade reading level, choose 7th grade. I don't know. I don't care. If you think you read more advanced, choose 12th grade. Choose a college level reading level. Doesn't matter. Choose a reading level. Then you have to type in the key points of your notes. So you have to go back to these notes, read through, be able to pick out a few key points in these notes, type it into ChatGPT with this prompt, and then you hit enter. And then it'll format an essential question and a summary for you. Read it. Make sure you understand it. If not, revise it. Ask the system to rewrite it at a different reading level, either a higher or lower reading level. You can also translate it to Spanish. If Spanish is your first language and you want to do your summary in Spanish, that's okay. Then add it to your notes. The essential question goes at the top. The summary goes either at the bottom or on the back on the last page. You can put it on a Post-it too. People have been putting out Post-its if they don't have enough room in their actual notes. Either way, that's fine. All right. And then here is the rest of your work for this week. So we have the lecture notes. We just went over them to fill in the blanks. You have an online lab. It's about the metric system and how scientists always use the metric system. We do not use pounds like we do when we normally weigh ourselves. We always use the metric system and the scientific method. We're going to see how you do with it. And then you have a check for understanding quiz. Use these notes to help you take the quiz. You can also use the online book. There are directions at the top. Sorry. In the important links. Oh, I haven't put how to, I will put that. I will put a link on how to look up the online book if you need it. All right. Do we have questions? No? Okay. That is all I have for you for today. So finish that essential question, finish that summary, take pictures of it, and upload it into Canvas. Make sure you upload last week's notes into Canvas if you haven't already.